What's up, guys? Welcome back to Mikey Yourself. In this week's video, we're going to adjust the fender on the '07 Road King to accommodate not only the 21-inch front wheel, but we're going to get ready for a lowering kit. Damn it! Okay guys, if you recall, when we put on our 21-inch DNA wheel, we added these fender risers, and I did mention that going through some of the blogs that are out there and different sites or whatever, that guys are saying that you could drill out the rear mount or elongate it, and that'll give you enough tipping space to run a 21-inch. Now, from what I understand, it only applies for the older bikes. I think if you're 2014, so I think that's the Rushmore. And I may have the year off. I might be off by a year or two, but when they went with the 19-inch wheel, they changed the fender, is what I was reading. So don't quote me on it, because that's just, I'm getting the information secondhand. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna try it out. I'm gonna try it without elongating or drilling out that rear wheel. Or rear wheel, what the heck, I mean the mounting area. So we'll try it that way, see if it rubs or anything like that. If it doesn't, great. If it does, then we'll go ahead and elongate it, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'm actually not going to elongate, I'm just going to increase the size of the hole by it's going to be 3/8. So let's get this thing in the garage. We shouldn't have to jack it up, but I do want to at least get it stood up vertically so we can go ahead and take that fender off, take off those risers, and attempt to put it on without them. All right, so first things first, we got to get this fender off. Now, depending on what kind of screws you have, I have hex heads on these ones, and I'm going to try to shortcut it. I guess I could do the fender first and then do the risers, but I'm going to try to shoot for the risers and just take it all out as one unit, so then I can work on the risers removal with the fender off. But because of kind of how everything sits and how much space clearance you have here with your socket, so if you have, like I said, hex heads, you can use something like this. Or if you're like me and you're going to try to shoot it across the wheel between the spokes, then it's really nice and convenient to have these types of sockets, just because then you can kind of work with a little bit more room. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off, and then I'll bring you back. Alright, so now I've got the fender off, and as you saw, I ended up having to take the back ones out just because the button bolt there that stuck out, like when you flex your fender, you squeeze a little bit so that way you can get it between the forks. It wasn't clearing, so instead of trying to put a whole bunch of pressure and potentially cracking the pane or doing something damage wise, I just took those out. So now I can go ahead and take out these front ones. Again, make sure you put something nice and soft down so that way you don't scratch your fender. So we're gonna go ahead, I'll flip this over real quick, take off these, and then we're gonna try to put it back on without doing the modification, and see how it sits just as a stock fender. And I don't know, we'll see, like if the guys that said that it can be done without modifying it, if they're right or if they're wrong, and we have to drill this out to the 3/8. So yeah, let me go ahead and take those off and we'll put it back on. All right, so I've got the fender kind of sort of on there, right? So I've just kind of not even hand tightened the screw all the way, but just put them in place. And what I'm noticing, so it looks like it might work, like I don't have to do the drilling. But one thing that I did find is the bolt for this trim, it's pretty long, it sticks out pretty far, and that is super close to the tire, and I really don't care for that. This thing is way longer than it actually needs to be, so we're going to pull that fender off, and I'm going to trim that bolt down. It should have zero impact on its functionality. I don't know why. Maybe it's not the right bolt or something. Maybe somebody swapped it out. And if I can swap it out, then I'll just get a shorter one. But let me take this fender back off and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's that bolt that I'm talking about. And if you look, I mean, that thing's like a 1/4 inch or more, maybe even close to a 1/2 inch sticking out of this thing, which I don't understand, like, why would have to come out that far. And it looks like it's actually missing a bolt. So it's really being held in by 2 Torx screws here. So I'm going to pull those out, and hopefully I'll be able to get that front piece off without having to remove the side pieces. Not that they're going to be a ton of effort. It's a couple of nuts, 4 of them, that would have to be pulled off. But let me take it off, and then what we can do is marker it so we know how far we need to cut. Put a bolt on there, so once we cut it, we can undo the bolt, and any threads that might get damaged after we do the cut will be fine, because that bolt will kind of technically sort of rethread it, right? Not that it matters. I mean, it's not even being used right now. So let's go ahead and pull this off and take a look at it. Okay guys, so I just learned something. So this little trim is literally only held on by those 2 screws, and it has nothing to do with that bolt there. So what I'm assuming is that bolt is either utilized for, the only thing I can think of is like if you have that trim like the Electric Glide has, that might be the point at which it mounts. So I am gonna put a bolt or nut on there, and I'm gonna trim it down. Just, I might as well. I don't have that trimming. I may get it in the future, so that's why I don't want to cut it all the way off. I'll just make it smaller, but first I got to figure out what the thread, and well, it's fine thread, but what the pitch is, so that way I can get a bolt on there. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I'm just going to use a grinder real quick and cut that off. So I've got the fender back on. I've got about a finger's clearance from that stud to the tire. It's still kind of close, but not close to where I'm worried about any damage occurring to the tire, because that space will remain static. It doesn't flux the same way as the shock does. But I haven't drilled that back hole, and it spins, and it's not rubbing on the fender. I'm trying to look up in there with a mirror and a flashlight, it's like super close. So I'm just curious. The inside of the fender is really dirty, right? Because it gets all that dirt and grime on there. So what I want to try out is just a little quick, I don't know, test, just to make sure, or to see if maybe I'm missing something with my little test that I was doing with the flashlight. And I'm gonna throw some tape on this and see if the tape rubs up on the fender, and then I know that it's still too close and I will have to do the drill. But if not, didn't rub. So I'm kind of curious as to how much space is there. I mean, honestly, the tire's gonna wear, so that would make it smaller. And anything protruding from the tire is probably a bad thing, right? So, you know, what I guess I'm a little twisted on is, if I were to get a screw stuck in the tire, would it damage my fender if it was there? And I guess that's always a possibility. I mean, depending on how big that screw is, but maybe I'll have bigger problems. So I think for now, I'm gonna leave it like this. I'm not gonna open up those rear holes. What I do need to do is take the screws or the bolts back out. Got to throw some Loctite on them, because this is a heavy vibration area. And I'm going to ride it around a bit. I'm going to see if I notice any wear pattern or anything on the tire. If it is rubbing, it should not take very long at all. I'll see a nice shiny spot. And that'll tell me if I do need to make that adjustment. So if I do, depending on how far it has to tilt, I may need to go back under here and cut that stud a little bit further. So yeah, so really, you know, that's about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and Loctite that stuff, and then we'll take kind of a view standing a little bit back from this, because it does cause the wheel to tuck in a little bit more to the fender, which kind of looks cool. So let me button this up and let's take that nice look. Alright guys, this is going to be a wrap for this week's video. You saw the video, looks amazing. Taking those risers out gave it about probably like a 1/2 inch to no more than 3/4 of an inch tuck. So it just looks even more low rider-ish, Fekla style, right? So we're going to test this out, make sure it's good. But if it is, then that just tells us or confirms for us if you're in at least the Twin Cam 96 range on a touring bike. So this is only applicable to touring. I can't validate for Softail or anything else, but you don't necessarily need the risers to put a 21-inch wheel on your front end. You can do the drilling if you want to, like some people said, so you can do a little bit of tipping. But if you do that, just make sure you watch out for that stud that's in the front of the fender. So if you have that, that stud there, that's made, I think, for the trim related to an electric glide. That may be a problem, so you may have to cut that down or remove it altogether. Depends on what you want to do and your plans for your bike. And yeah, once I get a couple more miles on this bike, or once I get some miles on it, because I haven't even ridden it yet since I made this change, I'll get back to y'all and let you know how it worked out. And hopefully it's a win. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up. If you're not a member of the community already, please hit the subscription button. I'd love to have you as a member. Provide feedback. Hopefully you learned something from me. And if you have some experience with this already, drop a comment down below. Let me know what your experience has been. That way we all learn from the different choices we make, and hopefully everybody gets a win out of this. So until my next video, I hope to see you in the win.